Back in the day, it used to be pretty awesome to be British. Not only did we rule the waves, we pretty much ruled the world too. And if something carried the stamp made in Great Britain, you knew it was going to be, well, great. Cars, ships, bikes, you name it, if we built it, it was awesome.
All ready, Chief?
Yes, sir.
Very good.
Plus, of course, we pretty much invented every sport under the sun, but it doesn't end there. We invented the computer thanks to Charles Babbage. The internet, we invented the theory of evolution. Nice one, Mr. Darwin, and it's not a theory, it is proven. We also invented physics thanks to a stray apple and one Sir Isaac Newton. And even more than that, we invented the English language in this proud land. I don't know if it's invented really, but you know, it came from here. But what have we given the world recently? Jeremy Kyle, David Cameron, One Direction. But don't worry about all of that and the atrocities we've committed in the last few years, because once again, it's time to be proud to be British. And you know why? This, the Triumph Daytona 675R. Now, when the original Daytona came out in 2006, it took the Supersport world by storm. I mean, the triple engine gave it the perfect mix of power and torque. It was the best handling bike on the market, it had aggressive looks, and it was just completely fresh and different. And then in 2011, when they brought out the R version, they cranked things up even more a notch. Had Brembo brakes, Öhlins suspension, and you had a real track day weapon on your hands. But the thing is, even though it was the class-leading bike by quite a way, Triumph decided to go back to the drawing board and literally completely reinvent the Daytona for 2013. And wow, what a bike they've made. So it's got a slightly more powerful engine that is allowed to rev a little bit more. It's got a new swing arm, a pretty much completely new chassis, and of course, they've moved the exhaust. I actually think it should come with a bit of a warning label about it being so addictive. Now, I had this bike for 2 weeks and I literally got up in the morning, rode it all day, every day for those 2 weeks, and I was so keen on trying to keep hold of it, Triumph actually had to send someone out to pick it up off me because I didn't want to give it back. But how can it be so much better? Well, we know from the launch review we did with Ali from Fast Bikes back in January that it's simply one of the greatest track bikes ever invented. And although race teams have taken a while to adjust to it, with Billy McConnell only getting his first win on the Smiths Triumph the other day, that's because it's so radically different, and it is going to take anyone by surprise when you get on this bike and ride it. They've changed it so much, but they've revolutionised, if you ask me, the Supersport class. And not just the Supersport class. Mid-range bikes, even up to litre bikes, are going to be very threatened by this. The irony being, for such a focused race bike, this actually feels more at home on the road. Now, the extra 3 brake horsepower they gave to the engine may not sound a lot, but the ability to rev an extra 500 RPM and the fact it's got a much flatter torque curve means there's literally power anywhere, and I mean anywhere, in the rev range. Plus, of course, 126 brake horsepower and 55 pound-foot of torque in a bike that only weighs 184 kilograms wet. Well, it's as insane as it sounds. Now, the gearbox is incredibly smooth, but what I really like about this, and what makes it really practical as a commuter almost, is the fact that with that flatter torque curve, they've been able to give it a much taller first and second gear. You can get to 70 in first, which makes travelling around town, nipping to the shops, really easy. And then there's the quick shifter. Now, I challenge anyone to get on this bike and go from a standstill, work through the gears and just crank that throttle open using the quick shifter with the noise and the speed sensation. And I challenge you not to get a little bit sexually excited. And if you don't, then I think you need to check yourself for a pulse. And then there's the exhaust. Now, it caused loads of controversy, with loads of people complaining before they'd ridden about the bike that it didn't look as sexy with it being moved from under the seat down to the side. But there's really good technical reasons why they did that. It allows them to shift nearly all the weight of the bike lower down. And with the new chassis, it turns what was already the class-leading handling Supersport machine into the best handling bike I've ever ridden. Now, on the old Daytona, I found the suspension much more set up for the track. With this one, straight out the box, I got on it and it felt like it was designed for the road user. And the great thing about it being fully adjustable Öhlins suspension throughout this bike is you can set it up to how you want to ride it in your individual riding style. Now you're probably saying about now, all right Luke, we get the gist, it's good at going round corners. What's it like in a straight line? Well, let me tell you, it's mind-meltingly fast, and not just for a super sport machine. This thing is probably the fastest bike I've ridden, unless you include the real high-end 1000cc superbikes. In fact, I can't believe I'm actually saying this. This thing kind of makes Elite superbikes obsolete, because while it may not have the peak power and have the 200-mile-an-hour top speed, it's got much more usable power and torque. And I genuinely reckon if you head out on a ride out with your mates on R1s, Panigales, S1000 RRs, you'll probably get to your destination a lot quicker than they will, because this thing is so easy to ride. Oh, and noise-wise, your right hand controls the wrath of God. I can't believe they've made this bike sound better than before, but mummy, it's that sexy. In fact, I'll genuinely go as far as saying that this bike has the perfect blend of everything for me. Power, torque, handling, aggressive looks, and just the greatest sounding triple engine in the world. Now obviously on a bike as fast as this, you need to be able to stop, and the Brembo brakes they put on this are incredible. Combined with an awesome ABS system, it gives you so much confidence, it's not just pulling away from the lights that this thing excels at. Now another thing I need to point out, because a lot of people say, what's it like to actually sit on and ride, how comfy is it? Because it's incredibly narrow, and actually when you sit on it for the first time, you're thinking, this isn't a 600 or 675cc bike, it's like a 125. It feels just light and agile, but don't fret. I'm 6'3", and I normally on Supersport machines have to take a break every 45 minutes because my old rugby injured knees play up. With this thing, I was on it for 6-7 hours a day in the saddle with only taking a break to stop for fuel, and I never had any problems. So add to all of the things we've been discussing the fact that it's comfy as well, and I think you can see why this bike's a little bit special. Now a few people came on Facebook and asked me, well hang on Luke, why hasn't it got one of these fancy rider aids, especially traction control, if it is so snarly and powerful and torquey? Do you know what though? You don't need it. The power delivery is just so smooth, and the feedback you get from the bike means that they would take away from the fun, and trust me, you don't want that when you're riding this. Now we often get feedback on the show that we seem to love Triumphs on it, and that's because we're British. But do you know what? Triumph are making some incredible bikes at the moment, and we promise you, we wouldn't be saying they were good unless they are, and this thing really is that good. And I'll even go on record as saying it's one of the only sports bikes that I would use as an everyday machine, and I really did for the 2 weeks I had it. I did everything on it. Okay, so it's 10,599 on the road, which does put it up there, and I mean really up there against the Supersport rivals as one of the most expensive. I think the MV Augusta F3 is about the same price, and well, that looks incredible. But this thing is so much better than its rivals, I think it's worth it. And if you're not actually that bothered about the quick shifter or the fancy Öhlins suspension, don't forget you can get the standard 675 for $899 on the road, and that's a pretty sweet machine too. So hang out those Union Jacks, and for the first time in years, take pride in being British thanks to this bike. We're still sorry about One Direction though.